first time I watched Agent Carter, I was home from school for a week with the flu. I remember falling asleep during a cooking show and waking up in time for Agent Carter to start. I really loved watching that show. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Agent Carter was a Marvel TV series, 2 seasons long, that acted as a sort of continuation of the story for the character of Peggy Carter from the Marvel Cinematic Universe. The series is primarily set in the post-war 1940s and watches as Peggy tracks down bad guys and moves on from the loss of Steve Rogers, also known as Captain America. The costumes in this series are amazing and colourful. I'm not the most certain they're historically accurate, but they're beautiful nonetheless. My favourite costume is the dress Peggy wears in Season 2, Episodes 1 and 9. It's a beautiful red dress with a lovely cross piece in the neckline and a nice little piece of gathering in the sleeves to make them sort of puffy. I recreated this dress a couple years ago. It was actually my first dress that I made myself. The seams are a little wonky and the fabric is a little thick, and I had to reduce the gathers on the sleeves because I hadn't factored in the extra width the gathers would take up. I then followed it up with a yellow version with a different skirt, which turned out to be a little heavy to wear but still is very nice. And for my birthday that year, I made a green version with a bit more of a fancy cross piece. It also originally had a double sleeve, but the inner sleeve ended up being a bit tight, and so I had to remove it. That green dress may be my favourite. Each Peggy dress was made with a different fabric, and the green one was made with a light cotton homespun and some satin lining that made the dress quite lightweight and comfortable. This year I decided I wanted to make the Peggy dress again out of a thinner fabric, the homespun, and with a slightly more accurate design. This is where we begin. I made sure to add more width to my sleeve pattern so it would accommodate the puff of the gathers, and made the cross-piece strips with the same fabric and some iron-on interfacing. I found some lovely satin fabric for the lining, then realized it's a little slippery and won't let me draw it on chalk. So I cut it with a huge seam allowance to accommodate for French seams and decided it would do. I then set to work sewing the bodice together, starting with the darts in the front and back of the dress, then putting together the shoulder seams. As the pattern was drafted a couple years ago, I figured that my measurements may have changed, so I added a little bit to the side seams of the pattern to hopefully allow more space for breathing. I also stitched together the skirt pieces, which consisted of 7 panels, a center front, 2 side fronts, 2 side backs, and 2 center back panels. I did not sew together the center back seam, as the skirt needs to attach to the bodice, then be fixed to a zipper. After that, I stitched together the bodice and skirt, forming the outer shell of the dress. It took a little bit of fiddling to get the seams to match, they don't, and to get the waist seam to fit the waist in the bodice, but I eventually got it together. Now it's time to repeat the process with my lining, only with French seams to avoid fraying, and here's where where things began to go downhill. So just a little late night update. This dress is taking longer than I thought it would take to make. I don't know what happened. I picked a lining fabric and I thought it'd be amazingly good, but turns out it's absolutely terrible. My machine won't sew it. I don't understand why. It's like the thread isn't looping through the bobbin thread or something. I can't machine sew it, and I hate that because now I have to hand sew everything. It'll go through the outer fashion fabric, but it won't go through the lining fabric, and I have no idea why. So now I've got to hand sew it, and then hand sew it to the fashion fabric. And it's just, I don't understand what, I thought the only hand sewing I have to do is hemming and putting the collar piece on, but no, it isn't that easy, is it? I might have to take my machine in for servicing after I make this dress, so I don't know if there'll be a dress video next month, because I don't know how long my machine's gonna take to get serviced. It hasn't been serviced since I bought it, and I bought it in 2015. It's been 8 years. So yeah, I don't like that you can barely see out that door. I feel like when I edit this, it's gonna have like some spooky thing there, and I don't like it. But yeah, it's just, if I turn the camera like But yeah, just why is I don't understand why the fabric's doing that. I thought maybe my needle was too strong, so I tried again with a different needle and it still didn't work. And then I tried making smaller stitches and that worked for like 2 centimeters. And there's more than 2 centimeters of fabric to sew, so that's a problem. I had to hand sew all the skirt and bodice pieces together for the lining. I'm not doing any dots because tailor's chalk won't show up on this fabric. I've never worked with this fabric before. I have no idea what it does. Like, I've worked with certain stretchy fabrics before and they've been okay. I've just had to adjust my machine settings and things. But this fabric, it's like so slippery and so stretchy and so delicate that it won't take any thread. My machine, the needle will go in and come back out the way it should, and I'm certain that the thread is doing the thing it does where it wraps around the bobbin and then goes back up and pulls the thread like it's supposed to do, you know, like you got your thread and then you got your loops, you know, but it's not doing that. Like, I don't get it. I don't understand why it isn't doing that. And I went onto the Discord server for the YouTuber Bernadette Banner and asked some advice. And the advice I got was good advice. Things like trying it with a cotton layer underneath and things. And I tried that and it still didn't work. I have no idea how this fabric works. I have no idea. But it's gonna take me forever. So, this dress was supposed to go up after the West Side Story review, and instead it's going to come up after Mini Roger and James, just because I have to hand sew everything. Ugh. So, yeah. Anytime you see me at the machine, I'm only sewing the cotton layer that actually will sew. So that's the update. That's all I wanted to say. That's literally all I pulled the camera out for. I hate this. But I have plans for the next projects for the rest of the year. I have some semblance of a plan for videos to come out. We'll just have to see what happens. Anyway, back to the actual video, I guess. Finally, however, the lining was complete, and I stitched it, still by hand, to the outer shell. I attached the lining for the bodice to the neckline of the shell, and the skirt to the waist seam of the shell. This was done to reduce the bulk that would come from the fabric folding over a seam, compared to one part sitting over an existing seam. I then attached the zipper, using a method that Jennifer Elise on YouTube outlined in one of her first videos. Sewing the back seam with a basting stitch, sewing the zipper to that, then ripping the back seam to reveal the zipper. My zipper ended up a little off-center, but it worked pretty well for my first attempt at attaching the zipper in that manner. I forgot to mention, I attached the sleeves before putting the zipper in, just making sure to sew on the homespun, not the lining. I hand-stitched the lining to the armhole later. It was time for final touches, such as hemming and the lovely chest piece. I hemmed the lining up quite a bit to avoid the possibility of the lining showing below the outer fabric, and hemmed the outer fabric just by the measurement of the selvage. Sewing the neckline and cross piece was a little tricky. I hand-stitched the back piece to the neckline using small whip stitches, making sure I caught the edges of the cross piece that I tucked between the layers, then used a white thread to sew my false piping down. I also decided to add a little modesty panel made with an old torn stocking. That was tricky to stitch on because I wanted to avoid wrinkling the panel as I stitched it onto the dress. I apologize, I did not film any of this considering I was sitting in the lounge room watching Supernatural with my sister and my mum and completely forgot to pick up a camera and record all the hand sewing. So you get this voiceover instead. I apologize, I will do better next time.
And it's all done. It took forever to make, as you can tell from the rest of the video, but we have a finished dress and I kind of like it more than I like the original one that I made. The sleeve ruffles worked a lot better. Like, look at that puff. It looks so much better. I haven't actually tried it on yet because it's summer, it's really hot, and I can't be bothered to try it on. But like, if you were to compare it to some of the reference pictures I've got, it does kind of look the same. or at least similar, which is good. That's what I was wanting. That's what I intended. Definitely didn't get the skirt right. Like in this reference picture, you can see I didn't get the skirt right, which I don't seem to be able to. This one's a bit more A-line, whereas the Peggy one has a bit more of a ruffle in the bottom. So I'll still have to figure that out if I were to make another one, which I kind of do. I kind of want to make a blue one. I think a blue one would look really nice. Definitely the cross piece is possibly too low. Could probably have gone a bit higher up, but it's okay. And just some more things to keep in mind for next time, I guess. Make the cross piece go higher up. I did add the modesty thing in, just because I wanted to, and because it was so low cut that I didn't want to actually accidentally, flash anybody. So it's got a little modesty thing made of an old stocking that I have, that I cut up and then hand sewed on. Hand stitched this. This is not piping. This is like I don't even know what it is. I found some like cording or something at the fabric store, and so I bought it because it was the right color and ended up with that, and so cool. I guess. Yeah, I don't have any shoes to match it because I don't have any red heels, but I do like wearing this. I like wearing the Peggy dresses out because they make me feel really happy. So yeah, it's nice. I like it. Very happy I did the cross piece out of the same fabric because it definitely blends in more, and you can see in the reference photos the same thing. It is made of the same fabric. This fabric may be a bit too bright. The darker red that I had for the original would probably have actually been better, but the darker red was a thicker color, so we went with this brighter red that is a thinner fabric. I had it sitting in front of the window and realized it is extremely transparent when it's in light, which is why I put a lining in. Now my lining was hemmed up quite a bit. You can't see. The lining is about this thick. That's doubled over. I didn't want it to show up under the skirt. But yeah, the skirt also in the original dress goes down to about mid-calf, and mine goes down to just below my knee. That's a preference of mine, not any measurement misfortunes. I like my dresses to go below my knee. I like them like that. They feel better. Also, you use less fabric. So maybe if I'd made this longer, maybe it would have done the ruffle thing that the Peggy dress does. I don't know. I've made 4 of these now. Yeah, 4. The yellow one doesn't count because the skirt was different, but I did make my sister one for her birthday last year. So yeah, if this looks familiar to you at all, it's because it's almost essentially the same pattern. It's just my sister's one. It has some slight modifications for her own comfort, and it's purple. And a different skirt pattern. That also ended up being much more A-line than it should be. But anyway, this is all finished. It took longer than I wanted it to, but I am happy with it. So is that all that matters? Yes. Probably will make a blue one at some point, but my next sewing project, if my machine decides it wants to cooperate this time, is probably going to be this one, McCall's 8682. It's like a little Regency type dress. I'm going to go with this shorter one. I'm going to make the bodice part in white with black lace overlay, and then the bottom with white lace overlay and black. So it'll look really cool, and it might be very subtle to something I really like. So who knows? Hi Zoe. I'm not picking her up, she just drank water. Yeah, so that's about it. And next week, I have no idea what video will be next week. Maybe Moulin Rouge. The Moulin Rouge movie review, the 2001 movie. Yeah, we'll probably do that one. yeah, so if you liked this, please leave a like, leave a comment if you liked it. Subscribe to see more. I will hopefully be able to make this dress because it's not the absurd lining that this dress was made of, so my machine should be fine with it. Yeah, and then just some other stuff. Keep your eye out, and I will see you next week. Bye.
Just another little late night update. Look what I found when I was cleaning my room, like a week after I finished the Peggy dress. Some beautiful red satin that probably would have been much better for making the lining than that abomination. And if I'd found this before I went buying lining, I probably wouldn't have spent so much. Because, like, I don't know if I would have had enough to make the whole dress, but considering there's still this much of the 4 meters of lining I bought, I probably would have had just enough. But, like, and it's slightly thicker, and it's backed with, like, slightly rougher fabric, so it probably would have actually stitched on the machine, and would have saved me so much time. Instead it took me like 3 weeks to make the Peggy dress, when I could have just made it with this. Don't you just hate it when that happens? Like, look at it. It would have been so nice. I guess I have to save it for the next red dress I make. If I make another red dress, that is. Like, look at it. But it would have been perfect. And I bet I could draw on it in Taylor's chalk. Look how clear that comes up. I'm so annoyed with myself.